Kia ora everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Pavilion Project. You're tuning into Burst from Aotearoa, and if you're tuning in for the first time, this is a series that features a collaborative project between Eke Panuku, students from the School of Architecture from Unitec, and local artists from Aotearoa. This Pavilion project was previously located in Avondale, but has since relocated to Henderson, and basically artists will repaint the structure every 2 months. In previous iterations, we have had incredible artwork, and while it's in its new location, we will continue this legacy. So in today's episode, we have a really great friend of mine joining us, graffiti writer, full-time muralist, MC, and a very, very well-travelled person, Pest 5 from TMD LORDS. So to kick off, Pest 5, are you able to introduce yourself and let us know what crews you represent?
Alright, this is Lord Pest 5 from the TMD crew, the fantastic Lords.
Awesome, bro. So let's go right back to the beginning. When did you first start painting graffiti?
We were at a rave, and we were smoking some weed in an abandoned building and found a spray can. I think I was maybe 14, but didn't really pursue it till my cousin from Auckland, who wrote Festa, came down to Christchurch, and this is about 1996, I think, maybe 95, maybe 96, and he knew how to draw outlines, and he knew how to draw tags, and he knew how to draw throw-ups, and he saw my doodles and was like, "Oh, you do graffiti?" I'm like, "No, but I'm interested in it, but I don't really know anything about it." And coming from Auckland in the 90s, he did know about it.
How did he know about it?
Because he was a tagger.
But he doesn't just become a tagger, so did he have some sort of source material like magazines, books, or videos, or something like that?
It was just a popular hobby for young teens in Auckland in the 90s. And I think he'd maybe done a workshop with DLT. So he knew the fundamentals of everything. And he was able to draw letters in that very chunky Euro style of the 90s, which is still a big part of my letter structure to this day. And I used to see it on jungle records, like drum and bass 12 inches. A lot of the graphics were in that UK graffiti style. A lot of the early jungle and drum and bass producers and DJs from London were graffiti guys. So it was very simple black and white, but that hard line Euro Brit dub style is fundamental to me. And yeah, that's kind of what my cousin drew as well, was in that style. So that was kind of my introduction, and so I kind of learned a little bit how to draw letter structures and stuff just from his guidance.
So would you say that he schooled you up?
He definitely introduced me to all the foundation stuff. Shout out cousin Jerome, love you, bro.
Other than your cousin, did you have any other friends at that time when you were 14 years old who were also interested in graffiti?
Well, there was no graffiti in Christchurch to note, apart from one dude that tagged Trek, and Jungle Paru was getting up. Jungle and Paru, and they were just doing Auckland style straight letter tags. Shortly after that, Lurk started painting with my homie Flex and this other guy Jason White that wrote 01, and they had a little crew called the CBC, the Christchurch Bomb Crew, and they just happened to paint on this alleyway that I walked down every day on my way to school. So that was the first time I actually saw proper pieces, all just done with VHT on wooden fences. But it blew my mind. I'd never seen proper painted graffiti like that before.
So just to backtrack a little bit, would you say that those people that you just listed were the kind of first generation of taggers in Christchurch?
To my knowledge, that was the first that I noticed.
So with Lurk and Flex, you're starting to see more graffiti?
They didn't write Lurk and Flex back then, but yeah, that was their sort of foundation crew. And what happened is that crew dissolved, and Lurk started painting with the TNA crew, the original TNA crew, which is a bunch of other guys. They're mostly skateboarders that kind of dabbled in graffiti. Friends of Decipher. They did various little pieces around, but Lurk was definitely the one out of them that was the most active and getting up. And so I met Flex at my high school. We actually went to the same school. He was a year or two below me. And he had been active in that CBC crew. We were recruiting a bass guitar player for our Rock West band. We knew that he played bass. So I got to know him, and he was like, "Oh, you like graffiti? I do graffiti." I showed him my little sketches, and he was like, "Let's go paint." So we went out, and he was like, "Let's start a new crew and call it the UAC, the Urban Artist Clique." And it started off as just me and him. And I didn't know how to paint, and I thought he knew how to paint, but he really kind of only knew the basics as well. So we're still kind of making it up. We did like a few little things around, and I said, "Yo, can we please link with Lyric LK, who's now Lurk?" Because I knew that they'd been in that crew together, and that Flex still had his contact. So we reached out to him, and yeah, he was down to paint. And so meeting LK, it was like the first time I've been excited to meet a writer. And because he was really far ahead at the time, just technically, and just with what, like his approach to painting was far beyond everyone else in Christchurch.
That's epic, man. And were they the same age as you guys?
The same age as me. Flex is like a year or two younger.
Nice. And why do you think Lurk was so ahead of his time?
He had a copy of Subway Art. The Grail. I don't know if I'm pretty sure his copy was the first I saw. But we also had Source magazines, the Graphics from Source Mags. And a little bit later on, we started getting 12-ounce Profit as well. That was a few years further down the track though.
I didn't know that 12-ounce was also a magazine.
That's all it was originally.
That's an interesting lesson for the day, because I've only ever known 12-ounce Profit as a forum or online forum. But anyway, once you started linking up with Flex and Lurk, what was the dynamic like between the three of you?
It was pretty cool, because at the time though, me and Flex were sort of more focused on doing music, like making beats, and we were b-boying as well. We were 4 Elements, and so we had like a bunch of other guys from our neighborhood that did graffiti or b-boying or rapped or whatever, but Lurk was just fully focused on graffiti. Flex was really, really into DJing. He's still a professional DJ today, but almost every other night, because I lived with Flex during those years, and almost every night or other night Lurk would come around to want to go paint. And so those two kind of formed a partnership beyond like my commitment to the craft, and they got up hard. And Flex was like the first guy to really bomb Christchurch, like not just with tags but with throw-ups and rooftops. And Lurk was just as active and painting barns and doing stompers and stuff. First person really doing stompers in Christchurch, and like it really kicked off. There was a lot of interest in kind of the hip-hop renaissance that was happening. So a lot of people were getting into b-boying and rap or whatever. But yeah, that would be like by 98 really that we started really trying to flex.
And looking back at that 98 era, what was the graffiti scene looking like in Christchurch at that time? What beyond kind of what you three were doing?
Well, it starts growing exponentially. Like Fiasco, who was in UAC crew with us, he wanted to kind of branch out and do his own thing. So him and Bonnie and Icarus and Nets Money. Yeah, so Fiasco, Fem 1, Icarus, and Nets Money. I'm pretty sure they were the founded DTR crew, which is kind of like a new generation and, not in the shadow of UAC, like branching out to do their own thing. Icarus, though, he'd been active like just as a tagger throughout this period, and he was always on the scene, like at all the gigs, and he was a mate too. But like most of those guys that were down with Vic and THC, like we used to like freestyle with them and hang out with them a lot, but they were pretty much just focused on tagging and skateboarding. But they like what we do because we did full color pieces. But so during that era, Net's Money and his crew were kind of rivaling what we were doing. It was like an unfriendly rivalry, like we were capping each other hard out, but it really drove the competition, and it was very public. And unfortunately, it kind of set a precedent in the Christchurch graffiti scene of having to battle and cross people out, which is still very dominating in Christchurch. When I go down there, these kids still at each other's throats. But like we'd cap each other out. We wouldn't leave it anonymous. We'd actually sign our names, and it pushed both our crews to kind of go better and better.
And what was the thing that prompted you guys to cap each other?
Just because, like, our crew UAC, which actually changed name to Christchurch Fat Cappers, and then it changed again to TNA, which was the name of Lurk's original crew. We just kind of recycled that crew, and the founding members of the old TNA said that we were allowed to start using that. Just because the name UAC got too hot, and then that became like our hip-hop group name. Then Christchurch Fat Cappers, that name got too hot, so we just kept switching the crew name. Anyway, we kind of had all the train lines just with our pieces, particularly the Ghost Yard. That's where we painted. And when we saw another crew painting there, it was like, no, this is, this is our spot. And we'd read Subway Art. We knew what we were supposed to do. Captain, fuck out. See, I'm going to roll up on you. But it never actually came to that.
So it never got to that level of violence between you guys, and it was just kind of like capping and paint on walls?
Yeah, no, but I wanted to get them, definitely, but never did. And like that fizzled out like pretty quick, to be honest. It was just in that initial period when we were active and before we actually knew who they were. And then, yeah, with time kind of went on and they're friends, yeah.
That's really great to hear, man, because obviously NZ's just such a small scene, and the message that I've always tried to promote with everyone is unity, and that's kind of my view of us. That's the only way for us to move forward, in my opinion. But anyway, you mentioned that you were also inspired by, beyond graffiti, you were inspired by jungle music and hip-hop. So where did you first kind of start to hear this type of music and learn about the 4 elements? Was it like on the radio or something?
Yeah, or on TV, like Run DMC or something like that, probably. Tone Loc. Loved it.
Who were some of your favourite bands or artists at the time?
At that time, definitely, like I was into De La Soul and Jungle Brothers and Tribe Called Quest and that kind of stuff. And when it kind of started going like Puff Daddy and Gangster and stuff, I didn't relate. And that's when I discovered techno and jungle and just got really interested in rave culture, that whole subculture. And it wasn't till jungle went dark and turned into drum and bass that I went back to hip hop. And that would have been around 1997. Yeah, and then I was still MCing and doing like various raves and stuff like that. But the music with Flex, yeah, we started just kind of focusing on hip hop. Initially though, I was DJing, and hang on, let me try and recall. So it was through our rock bands, our Rock Quest band, that I introduced Flex to jungle music and DJing, and he was just so bitten by the bug, and he was just instantly really good at DJing as well. And so I had a pair of turntables on loan, and I showed him how to mix, and then he was like, right, I'm buying a pair of turntables, so I'm going to be a DJ. So I was like, oh, I guess I've got to be the MC. So that's how I became an MC, was by default, because he bought turntables.
And in your MCing career, what type of stuff did you rap about?
In those days, like backpacker stuff, conscious rap, and very backpacker b-boy type stuff. Keeping it true to the culture and all that sort of stuff. And I used to rap with like a lot of gigs with this guy Charmed One and Scribe. And this is back when Sheila Rock were a group in Christchurch. We used to do all these little gigs around Christchurch, make little bits of money here and there.
That's sick, man. Would you say that there was already an explosion of hip hop like happening around the world already?
The year 2000 was when it really started gaining a lot of momentum.
What do you think was the catalyst for that explosion in the mainstream?
It just was kind of happening simultaneously around the world, it seems. like around the same time, a lot of the subculture just kind of grew up. Like it had already been there, and it already was there everywhere around the world. But yeah, something popped off in the late 90s, and that by the 2000s, it had a new momentum and a new generation, and a whole lot of new technique and style.
It seems like you had your foot in the door for all the different elements of hip-hop, but what was the catalyst that actually made you pick up the can and go down the trajectory of graffiti?
Well, initially I was probably pursuing music more than graffiti, but I mean, the UAC crew, like Flex moved away and we kind of had a little falling out with him, and this is around that time, around 2000, 2001, and then it was just like me, Fiasco and Lurk, and it was like no more DJing, no more b-boying, it's just painting now. And we just kind of started taking it more seriously, and we met some very key people, which kind of pushed us.
And who are some of these key figures that you're talking about?
Okay, there was the Hip Hop Summit 2000, the first one that was in Christchurch, and DLT and Daniel Tippett came down for that, and they didn't realise there was a graffiti scene, and we had a sort of introductory to, like, so what happened is we painted a big wall anyway, and they were like meant to be mentoring it, but they didn't realize we already knew how to paint, not that well, but we knew how to do pieces and we had a scene. And so they did this like little introductory speech in the theatre where the summit was being hosted, like, this is a fat cap and this and this. And everyone was like, Johnny, you need to get up there and do a speech so that these guys know that they're not walking into, you know, a room of people that don't know what they're talking about. So I jumped up and was like, shouted out all the crews that were active in Christchurch at that time. So yeah, we did that wall with them. And around the same time, I was starting to do little painting jobs as well. I never started out knowing that you could do graffiti professionally. To rewind a little bit before that, actually, I should give a big shout out to Jay Bulletproof, these guys. So he was a drum and bass DJ that moved to Christchurch in about 1997, 96, just when I was still a very beginning toy. And he had done a lot of work up in Auckland with Otis Frizzell, and you know what? He hadn't actually painted much, but he was unnaturally talented. Like, he got it and was able to paint really well, and he knew about painting with tuxins and tanas. Anyway, I just knew him as a jungle DJ and knew him from gigs, and I heard that he actually painted. Then went to go check this wall he was doing at YCD, the youth centre, before I knew even to hang out there. And he was painting with Joke 1. That's the first time I met him as well. Well, that's the first time I found out about using tux and paint as well. So that was really great to be able to go back to Lurk and Flex and be like, yo, we get these paints from the shoe shop and they've got amazing caps on them. And now we can do pieces with clean outlines. So meeting him was like just something that gave us a bit of a tech boost. That was like 96, I believe, 97. And then in 98, 99, Vince came down to Christchurch to see his sister. And through a mutual friend, we connected. I was only able to paint like rough throw-ups. I was still a real toy, but he was real cool, and he had a Krylon and he had a dye mark that he brought down from Auckland. He had a couple of New York fat caps and went and painted with me and Flex. And yeah, he was really kind considering how shitty and toy we were. But yeah, he left us his leftover caps, and you know, it's like one of those cargo cults where a thing drops on an island that's never seen technology before, and then we base a whole culture around it. It was like that. So just from those couple little visitors, and then by the Hip Hop Summit 2000, we already knew it was happening by the time DLT and that came down. Fat One and Askew were planning to come down to that trip, but given their great organisational skills, it failed to come to fruition. So I'd met Askew online by searching New Zealand graffiti, But I mean, because back in 2000, not many people were using the internet, but he was, and I was. So I found his little website and sent him a message. I'm a graffiti writer from Christchurch. But because of the photo networks that we had sending print photos around the country, we'd already seen his work and they already knew of our work, which was surprising to us. So yeah, they knew, and they'd seen freight trains as well of ours that had gone north. So yeah, he told me that they were going to try and come down for that thing, but it never happened. The following year, they tried to do another hip hop summit, but under a different name. And they hired me as like the facilitator for the graffiti wall. So I was like, Fat One and SQ, now's your time. And so that's 2001 or 2001 it must be. And so that was Fat One's first time on an airplane. Yeah.
Were the hip hop summits that were in Auckland the same ones that were in Christchurch? Because I've only ever experienced the ones in Auckland.
Yeah, so it was a partnership between the student radio station in Christchurch and DJ Ali. And the following year, they were like, we're going to do another one. And Ali was like, hey, that's my intellectual property. You can't do another one without me. And I'm going to go to Auckland and do it with DJ Severe. So DJ Severe and Ali continued with the second one in Auckland in 2001. A part of that was Disrupt the System, which was SQ's graffiti jam. And because I got him down to paint at our little hip hop event, he said, come up, you're invited. You can't paint, but you can come have a watch. So me and Fiasco came up here and had a jolly good time and met all the Auckland crew on that trip. What a time. And all the stuff happened within the space of a few years. Another important piece of the puzzle was Lumet, of course. In fact, yeah, definitely, if not for my cousin Festa, yeah, Lumet, I kind of owe most of my career to that guy, like so many other writers around the world.
Man, shout outs to the legendary Lumet, right? I still look at his work now, of stuff that he's created like 20 years ago, and it definitely still stands the test of time. So, but before we actually get to him, I'd like to bounce back actually to the conversation about the Hip Hop Summit for a moment in Christchurch. Had many international writers come through the country yet?
I don't think so.
I remember being told that Dame had come to the YCD, right?
Yeah, that was 2000. That was around this time. That's different time to Lumet, but that was Dame coming to Christchurch. That was the first time I partnered with SQ on an event. So they'd arranged for him to come to Auckland, and because he knew that I did events, he said, for a set price we can get Dame to your door and you can do with him as you will, he'll paint at your jam. So I just organised the jam around that at the YCD, painted over these guys and Joke One's mural, sorry guys.
And at what point did Lumet come to Christchurch?
Dame coming was crazy, like the first international being like the most beloved international at the time. It was like no one could believe it, that he was like, people were like, are you serious, are you coming to town? The guy that does the amazing 3D pieces, yeah, that guy. And yeah, he was awesome, he was such a chill dude. Shout out Mirko. And then shortly after that, Lumet came through, and he was just on a kind of holiday. He wasn't on a spraycation, he was with his wife. And he had painted a Disrupt the System event in Aotea Square, organised by SQ. I think it was just Otis, SQ, Fat One and him that painted at that, or maybe Inu, I forget. Anyway, he wasn't here to... That was just the one event that he did. So when he came to Christchurch, he was just sightseeing. And SQ asked me if he could come stay at my house, and I was like, it's Lumet, yes, he can come stay at my flat. For sure, I'll roll out the mattress, not even the inflatable mattress. I think we had a spare room in our apartment at the time, luckily. But yeah, he was like, I can only paint before 6 a.m. So if we want to do a piece, we have to get up at 5. I think, no, it was something like 5 to 8. Whereas only hours, because he'd agreed with his wife that she wouldn't paint while she was awake, because you have to set limits with this guy. And never before have I met a guy like this, and never before since. There's no one with that much energy and motivation as Lumet. And like the key thing that he told me was to approach a wall holistically. So instead of drawing your piece in the middle and then trying to figure out the background around it, you think about the background and your piece at the same time and take into account negative space, shape of the wall, what colours you have, light sources, basic art stuff that most writers don't even consider. And so instead of your piece just being on the wall, the whole wall becomes your piece. Incredible. But also he said to me, you need to come to Europe. You need to go to Europe. He was like, I could tell you what it's like, but it won't be right. You actually have to go there. And he's like, I've said the same thing to SQ in Auckland. I don't know if he's going to do it. But if you go there, I guarantee you'll be looked after. Because you've looked after me, you've looked after Dame. If you go there, you will be looked after. Well, you see, so that was the kind of key. Yeah, if I hadn't met him, I might have stayed doing events and doing music. But he sent me to Europe and that changed my life.
That's nice.
So, like, I mean, I didn't really have a vision at that point of what my future was. But he just sold it to me so well that I saved up all my money from gigs and from painting jobs and left my girlfriend and went to Europe. And that was in 2001.
Holy heck, that's pretty crazy. One thing I wanted to actually verify with you or check with you about its accuracy or myth is that I've been told that he was one of the first people to paint a whole car in New Zealand. Is that true?
Probably, but he was with Chintz on that first trip. And that was in the early to mid 90s, and they didn't meet any local writers anywhere in New Zealand. They were on a tour to try and paint trains in parts of the world that hadn't been bitten by the graffiti bug yet. So they were trying to go to places where the yards were completely unguarded, hardware stores just had infinite racking potential, and they hit every yard in New Zealand up and down the main line. But you got to understand, like, Lumet's great, but Chintz is something else. And according to Lumet, Chintz has done more trains than anyone ever.
Man, Chintz is definitely a legendary writer, and for those of the listeners who haven't seen his stuff before, make sure you have a look at his stuff online. It's pretty epic. But coming back to your journey, at some point you departed from Christchurch and moved to Auckland.
That was after I went to Europe.
Right, and could you just run me through that timeline again of how that happened? Well, you know, because after your Europe trip, or at least maybe what were some of the kind of lessons that you learned on your travels?
The main thing, my main takeaway was that graffiti could be more than just nighttime bombing, that productions are all painted in the daytime, and that you can actually make pretty good money off painting graffiti. And that all the elements of hip-hop have a lot of potential to reach a much bigger audience than just the guys at the youth centre. Like, they had huge festivals in stadiums with graffiti jams happening, you know, b-boy concerts in big arenas, b-boy battles in big arenas, and beatbox contests and hip-hop shows just with German rappers. That was the other thing, like, local talent could actually be top billing. You didn't need to depend on an international. You could actually grow a scene. And to see these scenes in France and Belgium and Switzerland and Germany, and just the level of professionalism and the fact that they were getting commissioned and sponsored by major brands, that was not happening in New Zealand by a long shot. So it really opened my eyes, like, wow, the potential here is to actually not just do local events. You can actually do big proper concerts, and you can actually paint graffiti murals for decent money, and you can actually paint them for big corporate clients.
And which city would you say was the most inspiring?
A big standout was Hamburg, because I happened to be there when there was this big exhibition on. So I actually kind of went there to help. So it was called Urban Discipline, and it was a exhibition that Dane was putting on with the Getting Up boys. Shout out Stowhead and Tarsek. And that was one aspect. So that was the graffiti aspect, but it was a citywide hip hop festival. They also had that's where I saw all these battles and concerts going on. And the exhibition itself was in this massive hall where they built all these walls. And I mean, Os Gemios, like that was their first time outside of Brazil too, was to go to that exhibition. And yeah, they kind of got me to chaperone them around the town a little bit. And I met Toast and Chintz, and that's where I first met Lazu from Mac Crew as well. In fact, a lot of my European connections I met in Hamburg at that time. And yeah, that was the big eye-opener. It was also just, you know, the Getting Up offices. They had a studio and office where they did graphic design. They had all their paint there. They planned murals. It was a blueprint for disruptive in a major way. And so I was there to help. I just kind of helped out, like doing odd jobs, setting up that exhibition, like helping prep the walls and all that kind of bullshit. And yeah, then I met Zebster there too that night. Yeah, just met like all these key people from the world of graffiti that I'd just seen in magazines, and met them all kind of at once in one place, and also saw that these people that were having careers off hip hop and graffiti. And I was just thinking, like, I didn't know any, you know, like now I see what Lumet was talking about. I actually did have to come here and see it for myself to see what was going on.
Comparing what they were doing overseas in Europe at that time, would you say that it would have been an unheard of thing to do or model that kind of business model in New Zealand?
Well, Otis and DLT were definitely doing commission jobs, but I didn't know that. I think I had some inclination because I'd seen the Burn Time video and I knew about Toast Heaven. I knew that they were painting legally. And I mean, I'd been doing little graffiti jobs too, but I just didn't think you could have like an office studio and like be partnered with the City Art Gallery and like all the stuff that they were doing. And so from there, Lumet said, you know, I got a lot of connections myself, but also he sent me to various places like Copenhagen to meet Bates and paint with him. And that was, you know, quite an eye-opener for a young boy from Christchurch. Also met Lars there, shout out Lars, who's now a friend of our whole crew, right? And a lot of the connections, I met Tilt on that trip as well, shout out Tilt. And you know, the whole Mac crew in Paris, actually. The Mac crew had a very similar thing going on to what Dame had going on in Hamburg, another prototype for disruptive. They had like an office where they were doing graphic design, and they were doing flyers, and they were doing events, and they were doing exhibitions, and they were doing commission murals. And every day busy on the job, not sitting around, not going to pokies, not getting stoned, just like professional. And on that same trip, on the way back, I had a stopover in San Francisco where I met the Lords crew. So another key person I really should shout out that I met in Hamburg was Susan Farrell from Art Crime's website. So for those that don't know, Susan Farrell in the 90s was the glue of the international graffiti scene. And she was just like a web programmer that happened to see graffiti on her walk to work each day and thought, someone should put this on the internet. So she took photos and uploaded them to, you know, Web 1.0, and it may have actually been the first visual art website, and it's still there, it's archived, Art Crimes. Graffiti.org is the website. So we just used to people from all around the world would just email her photos like, wow, there's a graffiti website. So she just became the catch-all. These people, the subculture she knew nothing about, suddenly she was friends with them all. So I'd met her in Hamburg. Actually, you know what? I think she came to Christchurch before. My timeline's all screwed up. Anyway, yeah, Susan Farrell was a huge connection. If ever I was going somewhere, I didn't know anyone, I'd just email her, hey, I'm going to this place, who do I meet up with? And she just hit me straight back. She had the network, she was the glue. And so, yeah, when I was in Hamburg, I hung out with her a lot, and Dame took us to see heaps of their cool, and Os Gemios, he took us on like a tiki tour around all the old Hamburg murals.
Wow, that's a pretty epic lineup of people and who have gone on to do incredible things, and I can just imagine that being such a huge eye-opener for you.
And just to a career that I didn't know that I was going to have.
And post-Europe, what was next?
So I had my stopover in the Bay Area and connected with the Lords crew. And that's what changed my graffiti style. See, up until then I'd still been dabbling with these 3D. I tried to paint like Lumet unsuccessfully. But that's where I first got the bug of like that West Coast style of graffiti. It took me a while to kind of learn how to paint it, but yeah, connecting with the Lords really sort of was what gave me inspiration stylistically. On my way home, I had a stopover in Auckland for one day. Deep One and SQ picked me up from the airport, and I was like, SQ, I've got too much to tell you, man. But the upshot is, how about I move to Auckland and we start a business doing this shit that I've seen them doing in Europe. Like I've seen the future. And he was just, I sold it well because he was like, okay, yep, move here and we'll start a business. So I went back to Christchurch and got on my grinds and tied up all my loose ends to be able to move to Auckland and start Disruptive.
That's awesome to hear, man. And I guess moving from one city to another is a huge step to leave your whole life behind. What was the plan of attack once you arrived to Auckland?
About a year between me coming back home from Europe and me moving up to Auckland. And in that time, all the sort of, I still had like a lot of good kind of things going on in Christchurch, little workshops and the Christchurch Polytechnic thing, and I was still able to get gigs and stuff, but I just kind of had to, I guess, get my act together to be able to move up here. But it's funny, like, it was Frodo Baggins going back to the Shire. Like, Frodo Baggins going back to the Shire in the sense that I think I'm going to be welcomed as a hero, but actually everyone looks at me like, oh, here's this guy that thinks he's all worldly and is too good for the Shire now. And I was like, well, I guess it really is time for me to be going then. People ain't even looking at me the same, but, you know, that's tall poppy syndrome, baby. But I moved to Auckland and was warmly welcomed with, so in that time, SQ had started up the business already, so he got it registered and a company account opened and ready to go, so I could, and he already did a couple of painting jobs, but because I hadn't come up yet, he was using like Gasp and Little Elliot to help him out on jobs, and then I came up and we got busy.
Love it, bro. And what was one of the early projects, if you remember, that you guys undertook under the Disrupt banner?
I don't remember. We were doing just heaps of little murals for quite a long time. And the Hip Hop Summit was always the big kind of annual event that we did that was exciting, so we get to choose what artists would come and stuff. But like from the get-go, SQ's dream was to do the magazine. That was like his goal. The art gallery wasn't really a goal, it almost felt like just something that we had to do because it was on the list of things. But yeah, for me doing the record label and doing events, that was still like my passion was quite a bit in the music still.
So were you still making music during this time, or were you kind of more clearly focused on graffiti by now?
The painting part was the foundation of the business and we knew that. But like the record label, the magazine, these were passion projects. And yeah, I was like producing music, recording and, you know, rapping shows and stuff, but I knew that wasn't my career. It was more just like a side interest and a way to meet girls.
So with the record label, were you also contracting and like signing artists to your label and, you know, getting them to perform at gigs?
Yeah, so we kind of did management as well, and we had like a team of b-boys and a team of, you know, artists on hand, but mostly it was just me and SQ. But Little L's, I mean Deos, of course, was a major part whenever we needed characters done. But yeah, the music stuff, it was also like doing events was always like a big passion for me. I mean, I started out organising raves when I was like a teenager, like little block parties and stuff. And yeah, I just love performing music, and also just like having the vision of an event, whether it be a rave or a hip hop night, or whether it's a graffiti event or an exhibition. Just having an idea in your mind of what you want the experience to be. So like having been to lots of festivals or events or exhibition, I know when I am at one that's done well, and when it's got a clear vision, you can tell the promoter actually has a creative vision for the event. It's not just he's booked a bunch of people and sold tickets. They've actually got an idea of the theming and creating an experience. So like when you listen to someone's song, or when you listen to someone or look at someone's artwork, you're getting the experience delivered to you from the artist, right? Same thing with an event. So the vision of the event promoter, the event organizer, you get to create an environment. And so there, for a big time, for me, that was kind of my major love, was putting on events.
So before you got involved in all of this, like running events and things, did you ever study at uni or tertiary event management or producing events? Because it's obviously not a job that you kind of just learn overnight.
When I was like 15, I guess I was like assistant to this guy Matt O'Brien. Shout out DJ Slipmat, Matt O'Brien, Obi-Wan. He was like the main rave organizer in Christchurch, and he worked at a record store. And yeah, he just got me to help like give out flyers and set up the event on the day. And I just watched how he moved and learned how he got sponsorship and how he booked events, how he booked the talent, he paid for, all the little things. So yeah, that was while I was in high school, and I applied that to doing little gigs and events like hip hop and drum and bass events and stuff around the neighborhood, and it just kind of got a bit bigger. And when I got back into doing hip hop, it was hip hop events, but same mentality.
That's awesome, man. And I guess kind of just coming back to Disrupt and the Hip Hop Summit for a moment, the one that was held in Auckland at least, obviously a critical part of that graffiti event was bringing over internationals. So for the people that weren't able to experience that event at that time, who were some of the people that you guys had invited over to participate?
So the year after I came back from Europe, we invited a bunch of those guys that I'd connected with over there, like Seek and Dame, Kodiak and Tarsek. And then, we had Bates, and we had Totem 2, and we had Ewok, HMMSK. And these are all still our mates till this day. Like, that was, once again, SQ's kind of passion project, was that disrupt the system, and he would always try and choose, like, his favorite, like, the dudes that he was really feeling at the time. And also he was kind of wise, because he brought people that had different skill sets that had profound influence on the local scene. I think he was able to pick people for different talents, knowing what they'd bring and, the influence that they'd bring. Because, you could look at their pictures in magazines, but when you see people painting a piece, in front of your eyes, it's a whole different thing. Even us, we picked up a lot of technique probably from painting with those guys. But, made good friendships too. Shout out Tilt, because he came out as well. And Mist and Lazu. Yeah, shout out French Connection.
And out of that period of time where there were so many internationals coming over, who would you say was the most influential to you?
Back in 2001, when I was painting the no outline stuff, like the 3D stuff like Lumet, definitely painting with Dame and Seek, because they, do all this very clever stuff with the colours and the hues and the lighting. But I'd already been on like a summer with them painting, because beyond Hamburg, I ended up painting like next to them in a lot of jams. And it's funny because people assumed that I was some famous writer, but it's just so happened. And the kids all lining up to sign their books. I'm like, honestly, no, I'm not. But I'm not even king of Linwood. I'm just not even king of my own flat. Like, my flatmates are up more than me. I just happen to be well connected and have a good painting style. At the time, I didn't even have a good painting style. I just had like good friends. But I learnt so much technically painting at the time. Also, on that summer in Europe, that's when street art was starting to be a thing. Like Andre, Mr. A, like was up all over Paris, and that Zeus and all that Invader, all that first generation of French street artists was really, that wasn't in the gallery yet, it was on the streets, and the Parisian homies Mac crew were like, look at this stuff that we got going on, you know, street art. But it was street bombing art at that time, you know, it was done with a graffiti mentality, it wasn't. And another artist that I guess, yeah, painting with Totem too, but the thing is you can watch that guy paint and still not actually be able to emulate what he does, man. He's on it. Yeah, because he's a style master and a technician. He's the man. Ewok was a big influence. Not like, I think he was influential in the idea that you can have lots of styles, but you can actually mash them together. Yeah, mashing the styles. He just filled up so many black box at it. He stayed at our house for an extra week or something. I don't know why. But I just remember just like having all my black books filled with Ewok pieces. Or just EW or EWO. And then Slope would finish them all off. And that's how Slope got his style, was by finishing unfinished Ewok pieces in black books. Shout out Slope 1.
During the Hip Hop Summit, were you already rocking that Latin script style?
I was starting to, yeah, that's what I call, that's that West Coast influence. Not yet. I was still kind of trying to figure it out. But on the Hip Hop Summit trip, where Dame and all that came out here, we did this wall out in Glen Eden on the train line. It was a massive long wall. Cab 101 was there, and RTR crew were there, and heaps of us were there. All the Germans were there. And I painted a 3D piece, and I really tried to take into account the ideas of the lighting, the hot and cold light and all this. And Dame was like, this is a good piece, Johnny. And I was just like, past the level, bro. You know what I mean? Trophy unlocked. 3D painting pieces. I did it. I figured it out. And then I was kind of like, well, where to from here? And just was like, kind of not bored of it, just done with it. And I started doing the Latin stuff.
This might be a little bit further down the timeline here, but I recall that you also did the background or stage design for a TV show called What Now?
Yeah, so that was when I had really found something. So I decided no more arrows. I'm not painting anymore. I didn't paint arrows in my piece for good 10, 15 years. I just no more arrows. I'm just gonna lose the funk and just go straight gangster romantic. So I was trying to use, paint roses and lots of spikes and not heavy metal, keep it still kind of gangster, just that tattoo aesthetic. And at the time, that aesthetic was not really being championed here at all. So a lot of people that wanted script letter tattoos, I drew heaps of tattoos. Because at the time, tattooers weren't really up on their script letter stuff. So a lot of tattooers from around Auckland and a lot of people that wanted those designs, and a lot of rappers' logos, like Breaking Wreck Words and Savage. I drew lots and lots, all of them. Louis Nux, yeah. All those script letters are all drawn by my hand.
One of the most notable things that you produced using that script style was a logo for a South Auckland rapper called Savage, who's obviously very internationally renowned. And that logo really got quite a lot of international fame and success, as well as the artist, of course. So that kind of put you on a bit of an international platform, right?
And it really made my work stand out, And so when I first moved to Auckland, I realised no one knew who I was, so it helped to have a really unique style, and my stuff stood out straight away. Also connecting with Addict, shout out Addict, he really inspired me to kind of bomb and get a bit of a rep for actually being able to paint the streets. And because moving here and just doing legal jobs with SQ was one thing. I actually did a lot of bombing with SQ in those first 2 years as well, but yeah, him and Addict really inspired me to bomb.
And what was the period of time for this?
So this is 2002 now, by the time I moved up to Auckland.
So at this time, There's obviously a huge amount of knowledge being shared with you, and obviously more than enough inspiration from all corners. What graffiti ideologies did you adopt or start to believe and practice in?
Well, an important thing with all the legal jobs that we were doing was that you'd always try and sneak your piece into the mural. And this was something that we'd learned off the Germans. So, it might be like, we want a painting of a farm. But, then you hide your letters inside the barn or in the grass or in the cow. Lumet's the champ of that, and he still does it to this day. Make his letters be anything on the mural. And also just to kind of be uncompromising in the fact that we do graffiti, we're not mural painters. We can paint murals, but at the end of the day, it's got to conform to our hip-hop sensibilities. I mean, I don't know if we always did it successfully. In the eyes of the haters, we definitely didn't. A lot of people were firmly opposed to what we're doing, and understandably, it's an illegal, clandestine counterculture. It's meant to be anti-commercial and anti-society. It's meant to be fuck you to society, and here we are, saying fuck you on TV, with this Boost Mobile sponsorship. Doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting point, and a question that I do have is, from a Boost Mobile perspective or position, what was their kind of attitude towards you guys painting graffiti? Because that's obviously a very corporate client, and I would imagine they have some sort of brand guidelines and obviously this notion of being associated with graffiti and the ideas of graffiti and the aesthetic. Was that ever an issue?
Well, you see, Boost Mobile was a brand in the States, and they'd done a very similar thing where they sponsored a whole bunch of rappers and got people to paint murals as well. Pretty much the same thing, same brand. Apparently they'd had a meeting with SQ, might have been there, but yeah, with Dawn Raid and Chris Graham and a few people we want to own hip-hop. So the first thing they had to be told was, no, you don't own hip-hop, but you can sponsor it. So yeah, the whole crew, bro, we all got new phones every 3 months, unlimited texting, calling, texts. Yeah, man, just back in the day when camera phones were first new. Oh boy, and we were sponsored by Converse, we had kicks, we were sponsored by Eco Clothing, so we had clothes. We had, all our events at the bars, so we got free drinks everywhere. We didn't have any money, but we looked like we were doing well. So it would seem, but it was all just sponsorship, really. But I mean, yeah, the haters just hated it. But, we loved it. I did.
Well, yeah, sure, man. I mean, I guess people's opinion never really matters anyway, but how did you guys, as a crew or business, how did you overcome that hate or negativity from riders within the scene who thought that what you guys were doing was maybe selling out or taking graffiti into a commercial direction? Because, I mean, you're always going to be faced with people who have a very right-wing kind of, solid perception and attitude of what graffiti is and how it should be, represented.
Well, that's the thing. We always tried to write our names. We tried to not put our faces on things. We still tried to be a little bit anonymous. We still did illegal graffiti. That was kind of key. And we were doing things for the culture, like getting these artists out here, putting on the exhibitions, putting on the events, putting out the magazine. We were sharing the shine around. And when we'd do jobs in different towns, we'd collaborate with locals and, we'd share the work around and all that. But there's always going to be this core group of people that just aren't happy because they're doing what they wish they could.
From my point of view, I think Disrupt did an incredible job in elevating the quality of graffiti, taking it to the mainstream, reaching a different audience, and just providing riders in general, to be honest, a really awesome financial opportunity to capitalize on some of that money, for all the work they've put in. But since then, I don't think anybody really has elevated it to that level, at least with the momentum that you guys had, in conjunction with hip hop. And I think the mindset perhaps of riders since then has just continued to be, remain anonymous and stay underground.
Looking back now, I kind of appreciate graffiti for that, and because now having seen what happened to street art, where it's just become so totally commodified, and became the opposite of what it was meant to be, like anti-capitalist. Now it's just strictly capitalism. It's just a bunch of people that come up with like a stamp and then try and get representation in a gallery so they can sell it to millions for like some elite people that don't even appreciate art and are just buying it for financial reasons. Like, that's the opposite of what the street art movement was originally about. So it's compromised itself to the point where it's revolting. I don't think we ever pushed graffiti in that way. And, you know, now that I'm older and I love painting graffiti recreationally again, so I think like more important than... So yeah, okay, with Disruptive, one of our goals was to expand the audience, and we did, but you know, be careful what you wish for, because it blew up so big that it got too big and, you know, the wheels fell off. But at the end of the day, I don't really care about that so much as how much I care about having a good style and influencing people through painting well, rather than the platform that the painting's on, the actual strength of the graffiti itself. Because like, I want a toy to see my piece and think, man, I need to paint better. Because you do need to paint better, toy. We all do, and like, I'm never satisfied with my pieces. I always look at the photo and be like, fuck, nearly, like I'm close. Some of my pieces I'm like, yes, I did it, but very few, maybe 5 in my whole career that I actually am like, that is good, and I wouldn't change anything.
What would you say was the biggest learning curve or like kind of takeaway from running Disrupt as a business?
Be careful what you wish for. And also, don't believe in the myth of progress. There's this idea that Western civilization is on the forever up. And our whole financial system is based on it. Speculation about, you know, how much things are going to be worth in the future. It's all based around the idea that things are always going to be worth more and get better and better and better. But it's not the way the world works, not the way history works. Things go in cycles. So, you know, just because things keep getting more and more, go up and up and up, it's like NFTs. You're going to drop off a cliff sooner or later. And that's what happened to us in Dawn Raid. And, you know, we thought we could just keep growing and just reinvesting the money and keep employing more people and putting on more and more grandiose events. But eventually audiences change and get bored and move on.
And what was the reason for Disrupt coming to a close?
Same reason Dawn Raid entered, just mounting pressures and declining audience. And we'd invested a lot in music and the magazine, and it was 2007, 2006 was the big decline of the music industry, and the print industry all happened at the same time.
And what do you speculate is the reason for that being? Because it seems like such a critical period of time for multiple industries to rethink, obviously, the way that they operate as a business.
Oh, because the world had gone online. People were now listening to music online and reading articles online. They weren't buying magazines and they weren't buying CDs. And no one was ready for it. No one some people tried to anticipate it, but no one, iTunes still didn't get invented for, it was there, but Napster was what was going on, and one of our magazine distributors overseas went bust. We invested a lot in a hip-hop album project that lost a lot of money, and we just had too much running expenses. We had too much staff, and all the money that we were making on painting jobs was just going to paying off all our running costs, and so the company was just insolvent.
So with Disrupt coming to a close, what was the next steps for you?
Oh, I didn't know. Yeah, but Askew, he was at the end of his tether with having clients tell him what to paint. It was destroying him. He just was like, I just want to paint my artwork. And at the time, he didn't even still know what his artwork was, because the whole time we were just having to do commission jobs. So he hadn't had time to actually grow as an artist, which was his destiny. And because that was always his goal, he wanted to be like one of the top 10 riders in the world. And he was getting there. He was really getting there, but he needed to, stop wasting his time with all this company that was drawing us. Because, we were managing a bunch of other artists and we had so much going on. We weren't focusing on our own careers at all. Yeah, we were just paying the bills.
So after that wrapped up, what was next?
Well, I kind of just kept going on with my little hustles. I still had Disruptive TV show, Disruptive radio show, and I was still involved in doing little events here and there. Still doing a couple of painting jobs here and there, but this is the global financial crisis. It happened around this time, 2007 as well. So there was just kind of a lot less spending going on. There's a lot less sponsorship money for events. Yeah, like a lot of the previous good relationships I'd had with sponsors, they were just like, oh no, we're not spending money on hip hop anymore. Oh boy. But luckily I got a big painting job for telecom and saved up all my money and went back to Europe. Yeah, and did my second spraycation OE and went back to all those places and reconnected with all my old friends. But that was more of a journey of self-discovery than it was like a business. It wasn't an R&D trip. It was an R&D trip into the self.
Epic, bro. And I also have been looking online and doing some research, obviously, before this conversation. And I see that you also had a blog.
Yeah, man.
I've seen that at some point you started posting quite a lot about your travels and sharing your experiences there. Could you describe this kind of period of self-discovery for me?
Right. Well, I guess I just decided to have a blog because it's before the days of Instagram and before the days of tweeting. Was that which we called microblogging when it came out. So it was just like people like how you do Instagram stories now, but you'd upload every few days and do photos. Yeah, like Dane did it the first time he came out here. I remember he was light years ahead. And so the second time I did that on my trip so people could see what I was up to. But it was just recreation really, and just kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I really love Italy and Rome. I painted a few kind of these styles there that look like Roman ruins, and like local people were asking me to go paint it. I keep saying I'm not here to work, I'm on a trip. And my friend was like, see all the gates in front of the shops, people get paid like €300 to paint one of those. You could do like one or two a day, and no one in Rome was trying to do legal jobs at the time. A couple of people dabbling. My friend was like, if you come back out here next year, spend the summer doing this. And because Disruptive was over and I didn't really have anything really tying me down in New Zealand, I was like, I might just do that. So let's see what happens. We'll be back for the Right for Gold battle 2009 and I'll come back and do it again. But global financial crisis, there was no sponsorship, there was to be no more international graffiti battle. But there was to be a pregnant girlfriend, so I stayed in Auckland.
Awesome, man. I'm sure that would have been a really enriching experience, in that period of your life, and exciting time. But I guess it's interesting that you bring up Right for Gold, but we'll actually get back there in a moment. But you're obviously also part of several crews beyond TMD and UAC. I'm actually interested to know, how did you get put down in Lords? Because that's an international crew.
Just the same way anyone gets put down in Lords, like going to California and painting with the guys and them kind of liking you. Like, it's really like, I feel like the criteria for Lords crew is to have a personal connection with like at least a decent number of the crew and have kind of spent enough time in California to connect with them. But also you have to be a Lord of style. Like, you have to have a real heavy, strong letter style. And everyone in the squad has that.
Do you think that you were one of the first people to be part of an international crew in New Zealand?
Originally I was down with crew, which is like a Bay Area crew, which a lot of the old school Bay Area Lords are in It's kind of like a feeder crew for Lords, I suppose. So, And yeah, that I got put down that the first time I went out there, 2001. So yeah, maybe I am. Because I didn't end up being officially Lords till that 2008 trip when I went back there after Right for Gold. But I'd been in contact with the guys, and I've been over there a bunch of times, and they always love it. Best times.
And could you tell us a little bit about how you got down with TMD?
Oh, right. Just through painting with the crew and flatting with SQ and painting with them every day. But I think it might have been Addict that nominated me because he saw my spirit, to go out and actually paint at night and put in work, take the risks. I think that's important, just showing heart. But also similar to Lords, just having like a super duty, heavy, tough style.
And what does it mean being a part of TMD to you?
Man, it's legacy and it's history. And when we paint outside of our comfort zone around New Zealand or around the world, it's not just the TMD flag we're waving, it's the New Zealand flag. And undoubtedly TMD wave that flag with the highest visibility internationally, and so there's a lot of weight on our shoulders to paint good because we got a very big reputation to live up to. And you look at some of the names in our crew and what people have done, man, like I'm a lightweight. I am a lightweight compared to half of my brothers. But when I paint a piece, best believe I'm going to burn anyone else around me. And I always aim to do that. And, it's just that sort of expectation. But, that's the crew. That's the crew that I have the most dialogue with.
Totally, man. And speaking of burners, there's just such an incredible pool of talent in the crew as well, right?
Yeah, and so much reciprocal influence as well. Because, I remember when you guys started painting fast and being like, Soft paint fast and Bobby paint fast and SQ paint fast. Look how fast Charles is painting. Like, fuck, I better keep up. So, like, it motivates me to learn new painting methodology to paint my style, but rapidly. One time Fat One's watching me try and do my second outline and then watching me struggle because it was an awkward line. He's like, that's a left-hand line. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, that's a line, the curve, the shape of it is for the left. It's like, this guy's teasing me for not being ambidextrous. So now I learn to paint with two hands. Thank you, Charles. Shout out Fat One, the capper. And yeah, just like there's a lot of things, we're just seeing Addict's commitment to bombing and finding spots. That's motivational. We'll see, you're always painting even though you're so fucking busy. And yeah, I think it's all reciprocal. So like you take influence and give it back as well. And yeah, just being out and painting with SQ again for the first time in years. And I saw he was painting the smoky technique, and I'm like, bro, I'm going to paint your smoky technique. I said it to him, and he was like, fuck yeah, bro, do it. So I did. I did my same normal hard letters, but then I did all his smoke trails coming off it.
Love it, man. And that's the type of dialogue and creative knowledge sharing that I'm, super grateful for to be a part of this crew. That, we can just share ideas and bounce, ideas off each other to improve what we do. And I guess coming back to Right for Gold, could you run it back and tell me what that event was and what TMD's involvement in that event was?
Alright, so it was like an international battle whereby they had national heats. So each country that had agreed to be part of it was sponsored by Montana, German Montana paint originally. Hence the name Right for Gold, Montana Gold, but then it changed to a Molotov event, but they kept the same name.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, New Zealand wasn't in it the first few years because I don't think we had the paint sponsorship. So I think the way it worked was crews would send in their piece, like you get given a theme or a phrase and you'd have to paint a wall with that phrase. And crews would submit their photos by the deadline, and if your crew made the top 10, you went to your national battle and you had to compete with all the other people, the top 10 in your country, and the winner from each country went to the world final, which was in Germany. And so the year that we got into it, I was regional organizer, which of course all the haters were like, how can this guy be in a competing crew? And it's like, I didn't paint, obviously. My crewmates painted. I just was like the guy running around fucking managing the thing. But I mean, you can look at the walls from that day and see that it had nothing to do with the fact that I was the manager. We fucking burned everybody. Doesn't matter who the judges were. Clearly the TMD was the best. But anyway, because I was the organizer and not a participating artist, I wasn't on the lineup to go battle. That was in 2006.
That national qualifying round put TMD on the map and obviously enabled our crew to go overseas and represent the country, right?
Yeah, I never got to paint with Akut, and I cut my fucking trigger finger and couldn't paint. And he was like, why don't you just paint with one of your other fingers? Fuck you, Akut. Love you, bro.
Yeah, and I mean, how talented is Akut, right? He was already, in the early 2000s doing this crazy photorealistic stuff with spray paint, which was insane. But also, I guess, in 2006, TMD went overseas to represent the country, but they also faced off with different countries.
I wasn't there, so I couldn't tell you who else was competing.
Were you on that second team, right?
Yeah, so I went in 2008 for the second one. So I couldn't go in 2006. I was the local organizer. It was violate the rules.
So for the people that don't know, TMD won the first battle and then also the second one, right?
Because we're so cocky, we sent a completely different lineup of artists the second time round so we could win it twice with a different lineup.
So who was on the first and second lineup?
Probably not asking the right person, but I think the first lineup was Fat One, Exist, SQ, Deos. We kept SQ and Deos, of course, our main weapons, and then sent me in as the background weapon. And we had Serum, and we had Addicts, and we had Rise, and Cantu did our highlights. Shout out Cantu, which is allowed in the rules, much to the disgust of all the other crews. When we've finished our piece and Cantu rocks up with a camera crew following him, and just to do the highlights on the piece.
That's amazing. And I mean, I recall Askew actually told me an interesting story about you painting the disco ball.
The phrase that we had to paint was "make it funky," and all the crews wrote "make" and there's a big burner, and then did a little word "it," and then "funky" is a big burner, and we thought, let's actually make the word "it" like the highlight, so it's like "make it funky." And so I thought, let's paint the word "it" to look like a mirror ball. And me being the secret weapon that paints the things that no one else wants to paint, they were like, you paint the mirror ball. And I painted the mirror ball to follow the lines of the letter, and they actually wanted it to be round. And Cantu and SQ were like, no, you're doing it wrong, trying to like puppeteer me, sitting down on the grass watching me paint. Yeah, and I chucked my can and was like, you don't like it, you fucking do it. But they didn't. They just sat there until I calmed down. They were like, now go do it. And so I went back and then I did it.
I remember seeing the finished wall online, and man, I just couldn't believe it. It was a pretty epic wall, and that disco ball really stood out to me.
But we would have lost to the Australians. DTS, bro. How the fuck do you beat DTS? I'll tell you how you beat your DTS. Just confidence. Because they went and sat down at the wall with sketchbooks and trestle tables and spent an hour conceptualizing. And then one of them decided to go for a walk around to see what everyone else is painting. And we were already halfway through painting exactly what they'd drawn. And so they had to go back to the tables. Guys, the Kiwis are already doing the disco scene. Struth, what the bloody hell are we going to do? So they were just throwing off. And they didn't know what to do. And you look at their wall on the day and you could tell they were totally thrown. So we were lucky. Part of the judging system for that battle was that each crew gets to vote for who they think is the best. And having, seen game shows, I'm like, we need to make an alliance. And SQ's like, we will play by the rules, Johnny, and we will win off our own merits. We won't be sure enough, the Australians come around the corner. Hey guys, what do you think about making an alliance? And SQ tells them off exactly the same way he told me off. So we had to win the proper way. Also, we made a point of finishing early, so that we could, like, we finished an hour before everyone else, so while everyone else is in the panic last hour, we're just drinking beers, smoking weed, whooping and having like a party, just to throw off their confidence even more. It's all psychological, bro.
It's all about mind games, bro. And I guess after you finished the event, and you were in Europe at this time, obviously, did you guys do a bit of a kind of crew tour in different countries, or did you come straight back to New Zealand?
Nah, we all did different things. I remember it really clearly because we got on the train and everyone was sitting at a different seat on the train carriage. I walked down, what are you guys going to do? We're going to go stay with Can2 and paint productions for like 2 weeks. I was like, fuck, I don't want to paint. I need a break. What are you guys going to do? Oh, we're going to go to Milan and paint some trains. I'm like, I just want to chill out. What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm either going to go with them or go with them. What am I going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to get off the train at the next station. Everyone's like, where are we? We're in the middle of East Germany, middle of nowhere. I'm like, yeah, but if I get off, I'll be able to take a connecting train because this train's going to turn west. I think I want to go south. And then everyone's like, you crazy. You can't get out of the train and you don't know where you are. And I just did it to prove a point. And so I went off into the mountains and went to see some castles and shit like that. And then I got down to Italy and then I painted trains too. Yeah, and see, the first time I went to Europe, it was just like, I know Lumet. And people were like, ha, you're from New Zealand? Wow, I've never seen a graffiti writer from New Zealand. And you know Lumet? Okay, you can come paint with us. But the second time I went there, it was like, whoa, you're in TMD! Shit! I went to the meeting of styles in Venice, and they had 100 writers, no available spaces. But yeah, my homie Viper, shout out Sexy. They were like, this guy's in TMD. And they were like, oh, well then, here's your spray cans, here's your wall, here's your accommodation, here's your food vouchers.
Graffiti royalty, eh?
At that point in time. Not me, just the crew, once again. It's just that I've got friends.
And at this point, the likes of Can2, Atom, and Wow123 were obviously all pushing TMD in Europe. So could you tell me what role you think they played for TMD?
Well, the first time in 2006 when the boys all went over, because the finals were in Germany, Can2 and Atom and Wow were like, you're in our country now, you can't lose. Because it's our names as well in our home country. So they took them to Style Camp and spent a month in Germany just painting productions every fucking day. And there's amazing work from that era, and they really were pushing the boys to like paint consistently amazing. Yeah, and they called it Style Camp. It's intense, and you look at the difference between Fat One and SQ's and everyone's pieces before and after that trip. You'll see the influence.
Yeah, I remember seeing a bunch of productions online, and the caliber of work during that time just got so high because there was just such a sense of unity and cohesion, I think, between everybody and their pieces, the lettering and the background characters, everything. It was just so epic. But I guess once you get back from that trip, were you already kind of back into the mural game and starting doing that straight away?
Not really. I didn't have any work to do. I had a pregnant girlfriend and I started doing Kung Fu. And I wasn't going to the club anymore. That whole life was over. My whole hip-hop life was over. Apart from, like, I was still dabbling in little bits and pieces. But really, yeah, just kind of got really into doing Kung Fu. And that was great because it was a great humbling. And, you know, having a child humbles you if you choose to step up and be a good parent, which I chose to do, and just kind of not putting yourself first, which is what hip-hop and graffiti is, you know, and just learning like Kung Fu, the spiritual side of it as well. Like while I was on that tour in Europe, I read the Bible and started kind of learning more about also Eastern philosophy and just kind of being aware of spiritualism. A lot of people in our crew already, kind of very awake spiritually, but I wasn't. And yeah, my journey just through kind of self-discovery and regrowth and parenting all happened 2009, 2010. I started kind of getting a little bit more serious, but my wife was now wife, at time baby mama, was working a lot. I was looking after the kid and just doing kung fu, really, dabbling in graffiti and hip hop still. But then I went in 2012. I went on a training trip to Thailand where we were training all sorts of martial arts styles at this big dojo out there, and just training with professional fighters and seeing their commitment and learning about Buddhism. One of the key things is having a simple profession and how humbling and also just how zen it is to just do a basic job like a trade or like fishing or like some people find it through martial arts, of course, or through meditation. But you don't have to like get into a state of zen through meditation or martial arts. You can actually get it through fishing or through bricklaying and these sort of simple actions. And just being a parent as well, I really sort of thought, I really need to have a career. Like, what the fuck am I doing in life? Am I going to be a kung fu fighter? I've got a glass jaw, it's not going to work. As good as I learn to fight, I'm never going to be able to take a punch like some of these guys I'm training with. And so that's not my destiny. So what is? And I kind of just took stock, and I'm like, well, of the skill set I have, it's either be events guy or be mural painter. And I thought, well, maybe I can just be mural painter and separate my graffiti from, like, with Disruptive, we were incorporating graffiti into our commercial jobs, but I thought I'll just do a clean cut separation and come up with a gimmicky name and just focus on mural painting not as an art, just as a trade. So I'm not trying to put any of my ego or any of my own artistic expectations into the work. I'm just going to paint just what the client wants, because I know no one does that, and if I do that, I'll probably have enough work to be able to have a career. So I took my old MC name For Hire and just put Johnny in front of it and be like, Johnny For Hire. That's a catchy name. So I do that and make it a mural painting business, and just kind of built myself a new website and did a little bit of digital marketing and didn't have to do much, and now I'm fucking king of the mural scene.
Well, you're definitely up there, and from memory as well, your website is the first search result on Google with graffitimurals.co.nz, right?
Yeah, and that's through hard graft, man. But go to any town in New Zealand, whose mural are you going to see? Who's done the more murals in more towns? Who's done more murals in the history of New Zealand? I can't think of another challenger. The beauty in separating Pest 5 from Johnny For Hire means that I don't have that compromise anymore that we had with Disruptive, because it's not selling out. Like, I've created a sold out persona so that my true graffiti self can continue to exist without any compromise. And also it means that my murals kind of don't get capped, because people know that I'm a real one and I'm actually a writer and I'm doing it covertly. I think that's why they don't get capped. I don't know. Maybe that's because they know I've done all this kung fu. Who knows?
Nobody wants to mess with Johnny. I think, this notion of treating your painting skills more as a trade compared to, being a fine artist, I think that's a really interesting point, which I think quite a lot of people who want to transition into doing something different finds it quite difficult. Was it ever difficult for you to let go of your ego as an artist?
Nah, because I just separated it. I didn't let go. I just created a new persona. And so, fine art, I know a lot of people see that as being very lucrative. It is, but the thing about fine art career is you do one big sale and then have no income for a few more months, and you hope for the next sale, and it's, you got kids to feed. It's not, you can't rely on it. But now that my mural career is quite established and I do get good commissions doing canvases, I'm kind of thinking it is my destiny eventually to do fine art. But best believe it won't be Johnny for Hire and it won't be Pest 5. It'll come up with a new thing when it's time to be a fine artist. I'm feeling the pull a lot. Like, I've had some like quite wealthy clients and stuff really say, like, you know, also a few galleries really be like, look, we could sell you stuff all the fucking time, because there's a few things that I paint which sells really well. But I just love the mural trade. It's very humble and it's very rewarding. Like, just doing a job, being able to step away from it at the end of the day and have a physical result, you know, like a trade, like just that job satisfaction. It's it really pays off. And also because I have a short attention span, I can't do the same thing over and over, which is why I don't do design anymore. Like, you know, I can do graphic design, I can do logo design, but I just hate sitting at the fucking computer like an hour or so and I'm done.
Yeah, that can definitely be boring, you know, obviously sitting in front of a computer all day. And I mean, with what you're doing, what better opportunity than to obviously be able to paint murals and go to different work sites and create something different every day. That sounds like obviously something that really suits your personality. Obviously, kind of coming back to your website, I've seen a huge raft of commercial and corporate clients that you've partnered with through your business. Is there a really memorable project or something that you've been involved with that kind of really stands out?
Hands down, Cali Mex in Hong Kong, because I got to go to Hong Kong 12 times. Over 20 restaurants, and also Thailand another 2 times, and also mainland China 1 time. Cali Mex, Hong Kong. So yeah, they franchised out to Thailand. I did all those sort of between 2014 to sort of 2018. Oh, it was quite simple. They already had their branding and their imagery. I just had to kind of put it together. And I mean, they probably could have got in their own words, they probably could have got someone else to do it, but they just loved my reliability. So they could just say, Johnny, we need you on this date, and this is the address. And I'd just book the flights myself, book the hotel myself, I'd go get the paint myself, I'd catch the metro, and I'd show up and I'd paint the wall and send them an invoice. And that type of professional reliability is a rarity in our world, especially in our line of business.
Totally agree, man. And just on another note, you've done a whole lot of mural painting, obviously, and you've been doing that as a full-time gig for a long time, and that's your main source of income. During COVID, over the past 2 years, has that affected your mural painting business in any way?
It has not. I doubled my prices and work hasn't slowed down. It was, you know what, COVID was good in a way because it made me closer with my wife and family. We had so much fucking fun in lockdown, bro. Yeah, it was great, man.
Coming back to travel, what is your favourite city in New Zealand for any reason?
Queenstown, because it's beautiful and because it has a magical lake that breathes, and it's a hunting ground, which means it's weird to have a permanent population. Most people that you meet there are transient. It has a very transient feel to it. So everything's kind of in the moment, and it's always an adventure, and you're always around people that are in the middle of an adventure. And even though that is Ngāi Tahu, for them it was always just a place that you go to hunt and then leave. And it still has that feeling to me. It's like a very temporary, like people aren't meant to be there for too long. The only problem is it's getting so flippin' overdeveloped. It's lost a lot of its charms, but Lake Wakatipu is magic.
Oh man, it's just such a beautiful place, right? And switching the lens to overseas, what would be some of your favourite cities that you've visited internationally?
They're all pretty good. I mean, I have a big connection with Hong Kong, so I spent so much time there. I love Rome and I love San Francisco. London's pretty cool. LA and New York are pretty cool. I don't know. Paris is pretty special. I don't know. I guess small towns of Italy that really stole my heart.
Italy is incredible for sure. And just coming back to graffiti for a moment, how do you think the current graffiti scene is doing? Are we moving in the right direction?
Yeah, definitely, because we went down this path of painting big productions. Before that, it was down the path of hardcore straight tags, and now it's come to a place of style painting illegally. So it's gone back underground, which I think is really important, but people aren't just doing tags, people are actually painting pieces, and people are doing it right this time. Like, they are finding spots, they're climbing up on rooftops, they're painting trains, they're doing panels, people are doing back jumps, and we're actually playing the game properly, not in some backward New Zealand made up, way, which the 90s and 2000s, it was really just like our version of trying to do it and often missing the target, whereas now I think we're really hitting the target. The only thing that lets me down is just like lack of effort from a lot of writers, that even though they're painting good spots and at least they're doing colour pieces, not just tags, there's just like a lot of people just kind of find a comfortable formula for doing their letters and they just keep painting that over and over and over again. Like, I realise that my pieces often look the same, but if you look, I do try and like bend my letter this way or bend it that way. It's not just doing a different arrow. I actually think about the shape of that letter and not trying to get too comfortable and doing always the same letter shapes, but actually switch them up.
You're obviously a busy man, doing the murals and things full time. Do you still have time to follow the graffiti scene here in the country?
Kind of. I try to, but it's just, as you get older, time speeds up, right? And so like the average career of a graffiti writer is like 3 years, I reckon. So like 3 years to me now happens in the blink of an eye. So I miss whole careers. It's only the ones that kind of paint for like, maybe after 6 years I'll notice you and be like, oh yes, that's ringing a bell. But I meet, because I'm out and about in the community, I meet, today I met 2 writers, and I'm painting like a mural in the staff courtyard at a large distribution centre. And it just happens to be like this, 2 of the staff members come up and they were writers and knew who I was and struck up a conversation. So I'm constantly meeting new writers, but I don't always know. I mean, the guys I met today, I knew who they were, but it doesn't always happen that way. I mean, I don't want to give too many shouts out for fear of missing anyone, but I mean, I'm really feeling the heart at the moment. Like, people are really doing it because they are wanting to paint and get up and push themselves. I think though it's a little bit too much weighted towards getting up and not enough towards getting unique and talent. I mean, it is a high caliber, higher than it used to be, but I mean, no one's inspiring me stylistically. Sorry guys. What I do get inspired by locally is just the action. Like, I see people getting up and be like, damn, I wish I was up on that spot too.
In this day and age, it's obviously super difficult to be original, but my question to you is, how can we spark originality in graffiti here and stop everybody's work just kind of looking the same and bring back this idea of innovation and being unique?
I don't know, because I feel like it's such a personal thing. I mean, I just think it's up to us, probably older guys, to keep burning them and hopefully make them feel bad about themselves. So like, whenever I paint with people I don't know, I actually am thinking to myself, burn these motherfuckers. And it's out of respect in a way, because I don't know if I can burn whoever I'm painting with, but at least I want to try, because in that I'm pushing myself. And maybe they will burn me, but that's good on them, because it means they're trying too.
Totally understand, man. And having been in the game for so long, I'm interested to know, what's your relationship with graffiti these days? Are you still trying to, are you doing it for the same reasons? Are you still trying to get up, or you push the graffiti scene stylistically? What's on the table for you?
Yeah, positive, because I'm back active again. Like, I've had years off, on and off, my whole life, because I feel like if I don't feel like painting, I shouldn't paint because I feel obliged to paint. Like, oh, I'm not up, therefore I should go paint. No. I want to be up and I feel like going out. That's the motivation for me. So it's like I might not, paint for a few years because I'm just not feeling like it. But I learned to play the ukulele. I don't know why, but it's just like something else to do. It's like I've never learned to play a musical instrument, so I do that. But now I've put the ukulele down and I want to go bombing again. And I did kung fu for a while, and it's good to actually step away and do different things in your life.
You've mentioned a couple of times already, but what other interests do you have outside of graffiti?
Just family. I try and be a good dad, and I try and be a good husband. And I think I succeed at both those things. And as I'm getting older, I'm, trying to stay fit, which I didn't really care about anymore. But I've realized fate is within your hands. A lot of what goes on in our lives is beyond our control. But like a lot of my friends now are like, oh, I'm too old to do that, and now I'm fat. And it's like, you don't have to actually get fat just because you're getting old. You can actually go to the gym and change your diet when your metabolism slows down. Actually, you can get, I'm probably better looking now than I used to be. And it's because if I can put in work and look after myself, and I didn't used to. Now I can play the ukulele.
I'll have to hear you play sometime, but obviously we've had a chat for a long time. So what would, in closing, what would be some advice that you would give to aspiring or emerging writers or artists?
Alright, well, this probably doesn't apply to most writers, but a lot of people I meet are like, I want to do what you do. And it's like, well, for one, I've got this on lock and don't come around here. And two, don't do this to try and make money. That is the worst possible motivation for doing art. But that's probably more to do with being an artist. Like a lot of people are like, how do I do this? I'm going to do what you do for a job. It's like, well, that's something the Germans taught me too. Never put on an art show with the goal of selling paintings. Put on an art show with the goal of showing your art. So just focus on that. Do good art. And eventually people want to buy it. If you produce good product, you won't have to worry about selling it. It will sell. So, and as for writing, as for graffiti, I guess my advice would be push yourself. Don't get comfortable. Just like how you got to try and do difficult spots if you want to be a bomber, if you want to be a good, talented, stylist, then just don't get comfortable. Don't just keep doing the same comfortable letter forms. Yes, that's nice. Everyone has a formula whereby they know their letters are going to fit well together, but flip it and try twisting the letters the other way. Like a lot of people can't get out of their formula, so they have to change names or write someone else's name just to get out of their rut. It's like there's infinite possibilities in the 4 or 5 letters you choose. The only limitations are within yourself and within the expectations of yourself.
Love it, man. And would you like to make any shout outs?
Just shouts out to my girls and shouts out to Burst One, the king, and who's doing such a good job of documenting the New Zealand graffiti movement. Shouts out TNA crew, shouts out RFC, shouts out TMD, and shouts out to the Lords crew.
Wow, that's us for another session. Thank you so much, Pest5, for your insights and knowledge. It's been awesome to hear about your kind of journey, and in my eyes, kind of just a recap, Disrupt and TMD have both played just such a critical role in obviously shaping the direction of graffiti in New Zealand and elevating our crew and what we do here in the scene here to an international level, and I guess put us on the map. That's really what I'm just super grateful for. And so most importantly, coming back to this idea of Disrupt, I think that you guys have just really done such an incredible job in the early 2000s for creating the business blueprints, not just for myself and my current direction, but also anybody that's interested in strategically positioning themselves financially, to make money from the skill sets within this movement. So, and to do it authentically. Thanks again for all of your time, stories, and hopefully for all of the listeners, you've learned something, and it's been an opportunity to understand a little bit about Pest5 and what he does as a career. And if you made it through the whole episode, thank you so much for listening, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to observe what he's done on this pavilion, which is kind of a bit of a concrete jungle theme. So in closing, our next artist we will feature is an artist called Paul Walsh, who also has his roots in graffiti, but has stepped more into the realm of mural painting and creating art full time. And I think most notable thing you might have or know about Paul Walsh maybe is some of the art that you've seen on his power boxes across Auckland and throughout the country. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and look forward to sharing more episodes of the Pavilion project. Peace.